Nicolo, it's been so long. What are you doing in the forest with this board game?
Cesare, it's so nice to see you. I've been thinking so much, and I want you to unite all of Italy together. And so I made this board game so I could teach you. It's called Princes. And look, I even made you a little game piece for yourself. It's you, miniature Cesare Borgia. Many don't think about this, but how a principality comes to be is essential for understanding what the next steps are. And you, Cesare, you don't have the easy way of coming into an old principality. You have a new principality, and it's not going to be easy, especially since you don't have the advantage of gaining skills over time from acquiring it, since you were just given it to. If you want to take over all of Italy and make it your principality, you can't keep relying on the skills and fortune of your dad. It's simply not going to last forever. You need to become self-sufficient. And there's two very important things that you need to do to maintain that self-sufficiency. And it's having armies and having your own military skills. Above all, a prince should devote all his energy and all his time to the art of war, for it's the most important thing he can do. A prince who doesn't know military matters won't be trusted by his soldiers. Similarly, reading, learning, and imitating great men from history is extremely important for a prince. Adapting is the key to learning from history, for the same actions that bring one man to ruin will bring another to fame. It all depends on the circumstances, and you have to be able to adapt to them. That's why hunting is so important. You need to learn the terrain of your principality. When you know that, you'll be able to defend it much better. And that knowledge that you learn of your own terrain, you'll be able to use it when you enter enemy terrain. While your own military skill is very important, the composition of your army is just as important. We Florentines, and really all of Italy, has been plagued by mercenary troops, and they're the ruin of Italy. Awful. They don't care about the principality. All they care about is lining their pockets. They won't even fight in the winter. And the captains, they've worked together to create this system of engaging militarily that avoids hardship as much as possible. And being driven fully by ambition, they can't be trusted. This is why it's so important that you have these military skills, because you have to be the captain. While the greatest danger with mercenaries is their cowardice, with auxiliaries, it's their courage. Auxiliary troops, of course, being troops sent by an ally. For, as I always say, if you lose, you remain defeated. If you win, you remain their prisoner. Your army should be composed of citizens that are happy to die for you. All this military talk brings me to the question of fortresses. Should you have one, or should you not have one? Well, I'll tell you this. Those who are more afraid of their people than outside invaders should build a fortress, for he can always burrow back in if there's a revolution. But those who are more afraid of foreigners shouldn't, because it will be much harder to take back his principality if he has to fight through his own fortress. But the prince who is scared of the popolo, who isn't in their good graces, isn't going to last long anyways. You can either have the favor of the popolo or the nobility, but the nobility will see you just as another guy, just one of them, while the people, they'll see you as their fighter. Having the will of the people on your side is extremely important, which is why another very important aspect that a prince should have is his ability to appear. His ability to appear righteous. He should always strive in all his deeds to give the impression that he is a great man of superior intelligence. And because of that, he should always pick a side and stick with it. Decisiveness is rewarded. If you have no sides when your neighbors are at war, then you'll just be hated by both. While it's important to have allies, a wise prince must not keep his word when it's to his disadvantage. That is to say, sometimes you have to break your promises. Sometimes you have to do bad for a good outcome. But you can't let the people know that. they're still under this Aristotelian ideal world where every good action leads to good outcomes, and everyone loves their ruler who does all the righteous things. I don't want to talk about how things ought to be. I want to talk about how things are, how you need to rule. When something needs to be done, it needs to be done. Sometimes it pays to be wicked, but you have to do it in the right way. Just look at Agathocles. He attained his principality through wickedness, through a most horrible betrayal, but it was done in one single stroke. And right after that, he worked on improving the lives of his subjects, and because of that, there was never revolt. He maintained his principality because although he got it in a wicked way, he was able to change his appearance through good deeds. It's better to appear miserly than generous. When you're miserly, you benefit those who have and only offend those who have not. Generosity requires a lot of money, and you have to get that money from somewhere. You're going to have to get it from those who have to give to those who don't have. And that's going to make you a lot of new enemies, a lot of powerful enemies that you really don't want to have. All this talk of appearing brings me to one of the most important questions when it comes to principalities. Is it better to be loved or to be feared? And I'm here telling you that it is much better to be feared. Love is held by a chain of loose obligations. Because of this, man will easily turn on you the minute it inconveniences him. But if he fears and dreads punishment, he will never abandon you. Plus, as you acquire all these new areas, you'll never be able to really escape the reputation of cruelty, so you might as well make it go to your favor. But it's extremely important to remember that while it is better to be feared, you cannot be hated, because that will be the end of you. Above all, you can never appear to be hated. Being rapacious and a usurper of property will make you hated, for man will first forgive you for killing his dad than he will for you stealing something from him. And if the people don't hate you, then you won't ever have to worry about conspiracies to depose you. And remember, as I said before, hatred is acquired through executing both good and bad actions, so you have to remain adaptable. As you acquire more territories, you're going to become a huge mixed principalities, and it's important to know how to maintain those. First, you have to extinguish the family of the old prince. If they're culturally and linguistically similar, it might be easy to hold, but if they're not, it's going to be extremely difficult to hold. But you have a couple of options. First, you can send a colony. This is the best way, because it brings in a bunch of your supporters into the area. Alternatively, or in addition to, you can also choose to live there. And if you live there, you'll be able to better see the problems that are arising and deal with them before they become an issue. The prince should also remember that he has to weaken the more powerful neighbors and strengthen the weaker neighbors. And remember, if another war has to happen, you will never be able to avoid it. War is inevitable. All you're doing is putting it off until they have an advantage on you. You're going to need help ruling this huge empire of yours. Relying on the nobility is not a good idea because they have their own legitimization, which comes from their nobility. Instead, you should have magistrates who base all their legitimacy of ruling on you. And you're going to need advisors, but you have to be very careful to avoid flatterers. Advisors who are always acting in their own self-interest can't be trusted. But on the other hand, the prince should treat them well so that the advisors see that the prince's success is essential to keeping their lifestyle, to their success. But remember, you have to remain the appearance of infallibility. Otherwise, why would people keep you in charge? So you have to have a very close-knit group of advisors who only they are allowed to tell you what is and what is not in your best interest. The reason why these other Italian princes keep losing their states is because they keep running away, hoping that the people would help them. But remember what I told you, you have to be self-sufficient. You can only rely on yourself. Plus, if someone else brings you to power, then that still doesn't put you in a better position security-wise. Also, it probably might not even happen. Now that I've told you all these things, I have to remind you that there's something you can't avoid. Fortuna. Some days she'll bring you more glory and fame than you could have ever imagined, but on the next day she could turn on you instantly and bring you to ruin. That's why it's so important to prepare in times of peace and become adaptable. For on your conquest to recapture Italy, Fortuna will not always be on your side, and you have to be able to power through. But I believe in you.